So happy to be here. We've been working with BT for a couple years on the technology you're about to hear and see. And what's most exciting about this, from our perspective, is that a lot of this was developed first in Sydney. It's, a lot of the technology is developed in Australia. And I'll let Andrew and Mike talk a little bit more about that story if you're interested. But I just thought it was important to share that. And without further ado, I'll defer to Andrew Border with Dolby and David Stark with BT.
So, good afternoon, and thanks for your time. What we wanted to do today is just kind of take you through a demonstration of the Dolby service. Some of you may or may not have come across it before, but really the key points about today is we've launched the service in the Asia Pacific region, but the other aspect of it is it's now what we term a complete solution. So this is a voice over IP based service that's been available on desktop, PC and Mac, also on Android and iOS devices. We've now added the third and what we think is kind of a very key component, which is the Dolby Conference Phone, which really kind of solves many of the audio conferencing problems that we think exist in the market today. So rather than me kind of going on about it at great length, it is very much kind of hearing is believing. So we'll take through the demos, but just before we do that, I'll let Andrew just say a few words particularly about it.
Yeah, thanks David. So yeah, really what we were trying to do on the Dolby side was look at what problems are with audio conferencing. One of the key things we were thinking about is why you can have a face-to-face meeting and that's so successful, and when you try and do an audio conference, it's comparatively so much more difficult. So what we try to do is really understand what goes into making regular face-to-face meetings work and what's lacking from the other technology solutions. And so what you'll hear today in BT Meeting with Dolby Voice is really a couple of things going on. So first of all, it's a wideband solution. So what we mean by that obviously is more acoustic bandwidth available. So sort of comparing AM radio to CD quality or something like that. That there's more information that's conveyed in terms of the audio information, which makes it more lifelike, makes it easier to understand what's going on. But really, thank you. Wideband we thought was really necessary but not sufficient. One of the other key things that happens in real meetings, face-to-face meetings, is what we call voice separation. So if you think about this meeting room we're in at the moment, you can hear all sorts of background noises going on outside, but hopefully you can hear my voice just fine and understand what I'm saying. And one of the key reasons for that is, most students hear in stereo, and we use our stereo hearing to be able to hear what's going on around in the world and make sense of it. And really, traditional conferencing systems take all of that away and take that advantage away from us. The other big thing we're focused on is noise reduction, which we'll actually demonstrate for you as well today. Big part of communications in business is people need to do meetings wherever they are, whether that's a busy airport, train station, out on the street, or just wherever they are. And one of the big challenges and things that makes conferencing unnatural is riding that mute key on and off to try and keep rid of the background noise, but missing the opportunity to actually talk and make your point. And so that's one of the things we're really focused on quite a bit with the solution as well. And the last bit, and this is the last bit between you and the demo, is really the problem with the meeting room itself. I'd like to sort of describe this problem in my way of two examples. Let's say we're in a meeting room like this, and the boss happens to be in the room with us, and we're probably going to have a really engaged conversation, right? People are going to talk, be very dynamic and engaged in the conversation they're having, because the boss is in the room with them. And the people on the phone generally have a pretty difficult time with that meeting, right? They don't know what's going on, they can't really engage, they feel left out and can't participate. So let's turn that scenario around, and now the boss is the one dialed in, into the meeting room on their cell phone or whatever, and everyone's doing this now. We're now talking to the box, in the middle of the room. We may as well not be in the same room together, because we're all trying to communicate with the magic box, which is allowing the boss to hopefully hear what's going on in the meeting. So we saw that as a really big problem to solve, and one of the things that, as we talked to BT's customers, it was really apparent that there was a real need for in terms of a solution. So we were very, very keen to work on that as part of the overall solution we brought to market. So let me talk a little bit about the conference phone, and then we'll move you into the demo. So really the idea of the conference phone is it's to facilitate a very natural meeting experience. So instead of having to lean and talk to the box, the idea is everyone can relax, pull back in your chair, have an engaged meeting. You know, if Len wants to make a point and Paul, you know, disagrees, you'll get a sense of that. And if I want to then, as a remote user, break in and say something about that, I should be able to find it effortless and easy to do as well. So it's about taking all that unnatural friction out of that meeting room experience. A few other things about it as well. I mean, we wanted to have a design for the device which really spoke to it being a different class of experience. So we put a fair bit of work into the industrial design. One of the things that people often struggle with on conference calls is actually knowing where the mute key is. So we wanted to have a big, nice, tactile button that you couldn't go wrong with, and that you'd know easily whether you were on mute or not. And so, you know, that was something we put some real work into. And then the other thing is, and you can see that, and I'll turn this around, is that you're actually able to see all the active participants on the call. Starting the meeting is really a single button type process rather than have to dial a telephone number and then a bridge passcode and all of that, which just speaks to wasted time starting a meeting. And if I'm the leader of the meeting, I actually have extended controls where if someone is just having an entirely different conversation than the one they're meant to be having, I can mute their line. Or let's say it's an investor call and they haven't identified themselves, as the chairperson I can actually eject them from the meeting, all using the UI. And also, rather than having complex touch tone commands I have to do, if I want to record the meeting, there's a button that I can simply record the meeting, for instance. So the audio experience is really what we'll focus on in the demonstrations, obviously, but I wanted to make the point that really from an end-to-end experience, we've taken the opportunity, I think, to address a lot of the other frustrations that come from interacting with conferencing systems as well.
So just one quick question about this. In a room this size, I'm used to seeing, another device which has, trailing
extended microphones.
Extended microphones.
Yes.
Can you actually give coverage to a room this size and this lively, audio-wise?
Well, we're about to throw ourselves into the lion's den and find out.
There is actually a key point there, which is the point of this device is to recreate for the people on the far end what it's like in the room. So it will actually give coverage in slightly bigger rooms than this. But if it's a noisy meeting and it's not well behaved, then the device isn't going to solve that problem for you. But if it's a well-run meeting and people are talking down at the far end or whatever, people at the far end on the remote end will hear that.
Yeah.
But in answer to your question, yes, if everything goes to plan, it will cover this room with just that device. And to your point, the only microphones and speakers are actually on the device on the table. There's no other microphones hidden around the room or anything. Just on this device.
Having Ben talk during the conference is probably, that's going to be the hardest problem that I'd be used to.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to do. Try a whole bunch of scenarios out for
Including a multiple presenter.
So that is yes.
Is that a power line or is that a network?
When you've got the extended pieces.
Sorry, I'll take you.
It's power
It is power.
Power over Ethernet.
Is there potential for Wi-Fi and battery?
We've looked at that for maybe future iterations of the device, but the current one is really designed for a fixed meeting room situation. I'm sorry, what's your...
No, I was just saying the point about the extended microphones. Typically the problem we have is one person mutes it and the other person unmutes it.
Yeah, well the other really common problems, I actually started collecting a photo album of them when I used to go visit customers, because they're invariably in a tangled mess right next to the main unit, which isn't actually really ideal from an audio point of view, of course. But they were literally just all tangled up and not used. The other common industry answer to that problem is to have wireless ones, but then whether the batteries are charged is the problem. Or there you have the little tabletop microphones or the gooseneck things that looks like you're doing price checks at Coles or something. I don't know.
And red means mute and blue means unmuted? Or?
Yes, it does. Yes, exactly. So there's actually 3 colours on the device. Red, as you say, is mute. Blue we use to indicate that you're on the BT service, BT Meeting with Dolby Voice.
Right.
This device can also be connected to a regular PBX, because obviously in a meeting room, what we've found is about 80% of the time, conference phones in meeting rooms are used to join a conference bridge. But 20% of the time they're being used to make just point-to-point telephone calls. So this device can, with call manager today, via PBXs just down the line, be used to make regular phone calls. And if you do that, the halo will be green instead of blue, but red's always mute.
The only test, and final question, only test that you're not covering latency, which happens in all the meetings I seem to be in these days, is the person on their laptop.
Yeah, we will actually happily have people tapping and carrying on, and we'll do that for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
That'd be good.
Let's demo.
Yeah, that'd be great, Andrew. Thank you.
Spill some water on it as well.
Do we have spare devices? I think we do. Right?
Yes, still
Usually beer, isn't it?
How many office boardrooms have power over Ethernet capability?
Quite a few.
Quite a lot, because if you think about how assiduous Cisco have been at sitting
So
on the
They use the same system.
Exactly the same system.
Because all our
Now,
phones are
Well, the
PoE.
powering system.
now, if you don't have power over Ethernet, though, I mean, very simple device power over Ethernet injector which goes into the mains and actually provides the power for the device. So if you had a room where you didn't
You still only have one cable coming out.
Exactly.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so awesome. Now the way we're going to do the demos is we essentially have 3 experiences for you, because obviously in conference calls, sometimes you're in the meeting room, sometimes you're working from home, and sometimes you're on your cell phone. And so we wanted to make sure you had the opportunity to hopefully that's not connected to the BT Network Operations Center or anything. So we'll allow you, we'll set you up so that you can try each of those experiences. And we have helpers for each of you to making sure you can find the rooms and get set up. So
We'll leave a couple in here and take 4 out probably.
okay, so Andrew, do you want to?
Yeah. So I think we take the first 4 people who want to go.
We need 2 volunteers to this stage.
So,
Anybody
do
want
you guys want to stay?
The gentleman at the end, not left.
You gonna stay? You gonna go? So what are we going to see this time?
So what we're going to do is we're going to take you to see how it works in some
Yes.
Feel free to leave it there. If you wouldn't mind staying there for the
Yeah.
These are Apple earbuds. Yep. If you step in, and you can play around with the user interface. You're on mute at the moment. I'm just going to take you off mute, then you'll be ready to talk.
Okay.
So you're now ready. You're on the call.
Okay. Yes, hung out the noisy street.
I didn't need to be on. Hello. Hello.
I'm in. Okay, sounds like we may have everybody.
Hi.
So what I'm going to do, folks, this is Andrew again, is we're going to do a roll call of who's in the meeting room, and then we'll get you guys to join the roll call. So when you hear the meeting room stop talking, just feel free to tell us your name and where you are at the moment. So, hi, this is Andrew Porter from Dolby.
Hello, this is Carlos Zamora with BT.
Hello, this is David Stark with BT.
Oh, hi, Cassidy from Spectrum.
Dominic Schreier from iTWire.net. Richard Elliott from IDC. Tim Cavill from BT.
Alex the Huttervoid from iTWire.
And Helen Ryan from Helen Dalton.
Okay, and who have we got who's not in the meeting room, please?
Glenn Ross. Sorry, it's Nick Ross here in a very noisy telephone booth, but I seem to be able to leave it pretty well.
Okay.
And here we go to see a very, very noisy telephone booth, and I heard most of that, except when some of the ladies were announcing themselves and the bus was rolling past me.
Okay. Okay.
We never heard the ladies.
No.
Okay. Who else? That sounds like you there, Len.
Yes, I'm here.
Very good.
Paul Warbeck, and I'm sitting in a very comfortable meeting room, the Darling Harbour room, I believe.
Okay, very good.
John, I'm here as well. I'm on the line. I'm sitting in the TP room as well.
Okay, good. So hopefully one of the things that you noticed when we did the introductions in the meeting room was that the talkers were coming from hopefully different locations in terms of your listening and the audio scene. So just to show that off again a little bit. So if I talk now and I get David to say something.
Are you going to pay me back that money you owed me from last night?
No, I'm sorry, that money's gone, David. That's you know, you just have to let these things go. Yeah, that's Richard agrees there. So okay, so did you have a sense that David and I were sort of coming to different sort of locations in that audio scene as we spoke?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, very much so as well.
Great. So let me show a couple of other things off in terms of what this unit can do. And remember, this is the only device we're using for capture and playback in the room. So what I'm going to do is, often in long meetings, people get bored and they want to get up and walk around, make a cup of coffee, you know, go loom menacingly over their sales director and find out why they haven't brought their numbers in, for instance. You know, to give them a little bit of, you know, encouragement, let's say. And I'm just walking around the table now, so hopefully having a sense of that movement as I walk around. I'm sort of back to where I started now. Could you hear that?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the bad presenter thing that Andrew mentioned. So if you remember the room, there was a big whiteboard at the end of the room, and I'm facing completely in the opposite direction from the phone at the moment. I'm trying not to talk too loudly. What's my audio level like for the people in the room at the moment?
Softer.
Softer, yeah. I'm not really yelling. Can you folks hear me on the phone all right still?
We're hearing you loud and clear. It's a little bit muted than before, but it's pretty clear from my side.
Yeah, good. Okay, and it wasn't super loud in the room, right, Richard? It was yeah. Okay, good. What else did we want to demonstrate?
Barging, sidebars.
Yes, exactly. So, well, actually,
if I start talking over you like that, that might work as well.
Yeah,
so
that would be barging, which is, I mean, if you think about the normal conference phone experience, that's the moment where generally what you have to do is wait, because of the way that the traffic gets, or voices get mixed on an audio conferencing bridge, it's usually the three loudest topics, for example. And so when it's loud in the room on a device like that, you wait for the pause and you generally have to shout.
Yeah.
Whereas that you can just, you know, you can break in much more easily. You can also kind of get what they call the sort of sidebar experience, or the cocktail effect, where, you know, if two people on the far end are actually talking to each other and you're talking in the room.
Well, if we do that now, maybe if I have a little chat with Richard and David, you keep talking. So I'm going to be
there are two very rude people down at the other end of the table who are talking.
You know, they're probably not the convention.
Exciting presentation.
well, we can hear everybody.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
Yeah, they were telling me that. And,
yeah. Sorry, I was just explaining to people on the other end of the phone how rude you were.
We had a question also on the typing thing, so I'm going to ask my colleague Carlos here from BT to compose a long email. Carlos is tapping away quite loudly in the room. He was a noisy note taker. I'm trying to present, you know, my very important presentation to you. Carlos, can you knock it off, mate? I mean, seriously. Buy a pen and a paper or something. So how do you guys go with that?
That was good.
No, we can still hear you.
I could hear the keyboard, but it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, so the idea, by the way, and this is a good I think, point to mention, is traditional conference phones, what they tend to do is beam steer microphones around, trying to track to what they think is the loudest talker in the room. It's a bit of a losing bet though, because in that scenario, Carlos was a lot closer to the phone than I was.
Yeah.
And there was every chance that the microphones would have steered to the keyboard noise as thinking it was the person talking in the room. Our approach is that we, you know, give the listener the whole sound field in the room, including the noisy typing and me talking, and use your brain essentially to decode those multiple signals. So even though you can still hear the keyboard tapping, you can also hear my voice, and you can use what we call the cocktail party effect to separate out those different noises. Not that it's a sensation of being drunk, the idea that in a noisy cocktail party, when you're having a conversation with someone, you can sort of tune out the distracting noise and focus on the thing of interest. Okay, good.
Another element, Andrew, that I think we need to point out, for the people using the mobile devices and the PC, everything about the dynamics of the call is visual. You can actually see who is talking. If there is a person that you want to mute, you can do that from a visual perspective. You don't have to remember a code or you don't have to punch anything other than look at your screen and navigate on your own screen and determine what you want to do with the participants in the call.
So just before we switch everyone around, we had some of the callers were in particularly noisy locations. I just wanted to get you to describe what you're hearing at the moment.
The conference.
So do we have someone in one of the noisy phone booths at the moment?
I think they found on the basis that it was too loud for them in there.
It was great. I got to tell you, it was very loud inside the phone booth, and I could still hear you guys, but the distraction of the background noise was astonishing.
Right. Yeah, clearly it would be the sort of place that if you were trying to have a conference call, you would have got out fairly quickly. The point I wanted to make, though, was that we really couldn't hear much of that background.
We couldn't hear it. I couldn't hear it at all.
Right? So when you guys try it, and we may have it turned up too loud, to be fair, for it to be tolerable, but just remember what you didn't hear in the room. So what I'm going to ask is for the BT helpers now to switch folks around so you can try the other ends of the experience, if that's all right.
Yeah.
And great.
What are the technical specifications of the phone? How many microphones, what codecs? You know what? Who are you going to brand the phone as? Because that one says Dolby on it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what, Dominic, I was thinking we can get into that, but I thought we'd just get to the demo because that's a fairly long conversation, and I know you're interested in those details.
Has left the conference.
But maybe at a high level, you know, if you...
Yeah, sure.
That's what we're after.
Yeah, so in terms of the phone and bringing it to market, BT is our exclusive partner with the phone, and so it is a Dolby manufactured device, but BT is our exclusive partner for bringing the phone to market. In terms of the technical specifications you were asking about, there are multiple speakers and microphones inside it. We don't disclose how many, but and in terms of the codec, when it's connected to a call manager device, it supports standard industry codec G7A, 722, IWC. But in terms of the BT Meeting, the Dolby Voice experience, it is a proprietary Dolby codec, which was designed specifically for multi-party audio, and it's where a lot of the research went into, saying, well, how do you have an audio system which is actually designed for doing multi-party audio conferencing, and it's has some really unique attributes.
So you would characterize the phone as a mono or stereo device?
It's a multi-channel device, is the way I would describe it. Does that give you what you need?
Thank you.
Good.
So we'll take those guys out?
Yes, okay, great.
Coming into the phone box.
Yes.
Shuffling people out.
So if you gentlemen would just step outside, we're going to bring you into a different environment. You'll get more of a mobile experience.
How'd that go for you?
Oh, it's good. I was just at conference room.
Right. Yeah. Good. Michael, if you're listening, if you let me know when everyone's situated again, it would be great.
Just over a couple of years. But we already have
Alan, if you want to join us?
So this is just an extension just an extension, but it's an extension of the
How'd that work for you, Len?
That's good, very good. Excellent.
Good. Okay, so it sounds like we've got a few people getting situated there. How are we doing, Michael?
So for book 2, we're still getting the gentleman in.
Okay.
Not quite in yet.
I'm in the phone box. I haven't been in one of these for years.
Actually, it smells a bit better than most of the ones at
Does anyone have a marker pen?
Don't deface the phone boxes, please.
Are there any Daleks in there?
I feel like I should be writing something on it.
Turn your sound down in your phone box, Richard.
Did they turn it down?
Yeah, you in the quiet phone box.
Higher. I'm in the ones nearest the conference.
Honestly, yeah, I can't hear any of that background noise, and I was just there, so
We have a quiet and a loud box.
I can hear the pneumatic drill. That's amazing.
I think they might be both noisy.
Yeah, I think they're both loud. Okay, so it sounds like Michael, we've got everyone in now.
I have everybody's in it.
Okay, great.
One thing we should actually probably just mention, Andrew, is although this demo is all with soft clients, the service is mixed mode.
Yes.
So you don't have.
That's a good point, Dave. Yeah, so the point that David's just making is that obviously there are some times when you can't dial in over IP. You know, we support regular telephone connections as well. Okay, so sorry guys, what we'll do is we'll just do a very quick version of what we did in the room so you get the other end of the experience. So we'll start with the roll call again, guys. So for the folks in the room, Andrew Border,
Sean Durkin,
David Starr,
Lynn Ross, Alex the Hunter Pride, Paul Waldman,
Carlos Zamora.
hello, great. And on the remote end, who do we have?
Coming sure.
No, it'll be your hand up.
Heard Dominic.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. All right, so let me do a few of the things that I did in the previous demo for folks. So let me do the first thing of just walking around the room, right? So I've got one of these Fitbit bands on that tells me I need to walk more each day. So I've taken to the habit of just strolling around the meeting room as I pontificate at Dolby back at headquarters. So hopefully you can hear me moving around the room now, getting a sense of that as I return back to where I started. So can you folks hear that, the remote listeners?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so the other thing I'm going to do is also do the bad presenter part. So now I've walked up to the whiteboard and I'm going to try and talk reasonably softly as I write on the whiteboard, working out our strategy for FY15. Hopefully I'm not talking too loudly in the room, so Lennon guys, I mean, not really trying to yell. Yeah, fine. So can you guys hear me on the far end?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Good. So probably a little bit fainter because I was turned away completely from the phone. But once again, bear in mind this is a pretty big conference room.
And also to those in the room, you sounded a bit fainter as well.
Yeah, exactly. To your point, we try and capture what the experience is like in the actual meeting room that you're in. What else do we do there?
Keyboard.
The keyboard typing. All right, Sean, I'm afraid you're going to have to compose for an email now. So, Sean's a very vigorous typer there.
Hard to keep up.
So, Sean, you know, if you could take live dictation of what I'm saying here, which is really important. I don't think your heart's really into that, but
I think it's touch typing course.
Yeah, exactly. So, hopefully, what you heard there was still heard my voice nice and strongly, but you would have heard Sean in the background typing as well. But I'm hoping that you were able to tune your attention to what I was saying, rather than be overly bothered by the distracting noise of the typing, which was distracting in the meeting room as well.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, great. What else haven't I covered?
We did the sidebar.
Yes, okay. So just to do that again. So David, if you wouldn't mind saying something important.
So I'm going most of the things that I say, Andrew, are always important. So the least you could do is pay attention to them. And also, I would like to bring up the matter of money will be getting going.
Okay.
So that would be okay.
Okay, so what you had there was basically someone presenting, and as sometimes happens in meetings, some people down the other end of the table having an entirely different conversation. Once again, the idea is you should be able to tune your attention a little bit to either of those conversations. Obviously, what would happen in the real meeting is you'd call that to order at some point. But if you're the remote participant, they're the sort of things that make it really hard to feel as though you're engaged in the meeting, because these are the things that happen in real life meetings and where the technology tends to fall over and doesn't allow people to participate. Okay, good.
Okay. Good.
All right.
So we got one more.
I'm not sure. Do we have one more rotation to do? I'm not sure.
I think so.
Yes. Okay.